Some moments don't ask for permission. They arrive quietly and demand to know who we really are. It was a rainy Thursday evening in a tiny cafe by the highway, storm pounding against the windows, hot coffee steam twisting in the air. Everyone pretended not to look up from their screens. And then the door pushed open. A young woman, soaked through, her coat torn, one leg missing below the knee, her prosthetic leg making that faint squeak with each step. She paused in the doorway and whispered, "Sir, can I sit here?" People glanced, shifted, then looked away. No one moved toward her. They sipped their drinks, pretending they hadn't seen her struggle. Across the room sat Mark, a single dad who'd left his little boy with his grandmother to make some extra shifts so they could pay rent. Mark watched her and froze. Why was she here alone? What had happened to her? Was she hurt? And why was everyone ignoring her? Before we go deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Her name was Emily, and 6 months earlier, she had been riding her motorcycle home from work when a car abruptly swerved into her lane. The impact threw her off the bike, and when she came to, first responders were already cutting her from under the wreckage. By the time she opened her eyes in the hospital, doctors had no choice but to amputate her right leg. The physical pain had been enormous, but the shock of seeing her body altered forever was worse. Every step afterward was a reminder of all she had lost, her confidence, her sense of normalcy, the future she used to picture for herself. Today, she wore a newer prosthetic limb, one she could barely afford after mounting medical bills and insurance battles made her family bankrupt. Then came that storm. That night she wandered into this cafe, drenched, exhausted, hoping someone would offer a seat, a moment of warmth. And there she was, right in front of Mark, a stranger whose mind was racing with questions about what he could say, or if he should say anything at all. Mark didn't know her story, and he didn't know what to do. He felt the familiar ache of being responsible for someone other than himself, his little boy waiting at home, the weight of that responsibility heavy in his chest. And yet, something tightened inside him as he watched Emily's hand tremble on the edge of her coffee cup. Was this how loneliness felt? Not quite pain, not quite emptiness, but something that made your heart ache in a place you didn't know existed. In the cafe, every other patron's eyes were fixed on something else, a phone screen, a menu board, the storm outside. Emily didn't catch a single kind glance. She didn't get a single offer of help. She only got silence. Why did everyone look away? What goes through a person's mind when they're in pain and no one steps in? Can kindness still find a home in moments when the world seems too busy to care? Maybe it can, but will it in this story? Stay with us to find out. Rowan Hayes had always believed that life changes in the quiet moments, not the loud ones. He was a widowed single dad, raising two kids, Ella, who was 9, and Milo, who was 7. They were the kind of children who still left drawings on the fridge for their mother, who had passed away 3 years earlier after a sudden illness that no one saw coming. Rowan worked double shifts at a local hardware store, doing everything he could to give them a sense of stability. He wasn't perfect, but he was gentle, patient, and protective in ways that only a parent who has survived loss understands. Today was supposed to be a simple afternoon break, a cup of coffee before heading home to help with homework, nothing more. But when the little girl walked into the cafe, drenched and trembling, that ordinary afternoon shifted in a way he didn't expect, almost as if life was asking him to pay attention. She couldn't have been more than 11. Her clothes clung to her skin, soaked by the storm outside. Her breathing was shallow, as though each inhale was a battle she wasn't prepared to fight. She tried not to cry, but the way her lips tightened gave away more than she realized. The prosthetic leg she wore was old, the straps worn thin, patches of fabric fraying at the edges. And when she lowered herself onto the chair across from Rowan, she winced, an instinctive flinch as pain shot through the broken strap digging into her skin. Rowan saw it, the way her fingers curled around the edge of the table, trying to steady herself without drawing attention. Most people would have glanced for a second and gone back to their day, but he couldn't, not after everything he'd been through, not after losing someone he loved and realizing how invisible pain can be to those who aren't looking. There was something else, something subtle but unmistakable in the way she looked around the cafe.
Her eyes didn't move like a tired child's eyes. They moved like someone searching for danger, like someone afraid that whatever she had run from might still find her if she wasn't careful. That small detail lodged itself in Rowan's mind. She wasn't just exhausted from the storm, she was scared, deeply scared, in a way that settled heavily in the air between them. He found himself wondering what kind of fear could grip a child so tightly that even a warm room couldn't soften her posture. As you listen to this, ask yourself, how would you react if you were in Rowan's place? Would you offer help? Would you hesitate? And how do you feel seeing a child in that state? Does it make you uneasy, protective, heartbroken? Let us know what you would have done, because your thoughts matter here. Ella was the first to speak. She had always been the bolder of Rowan's children, the one who could sense discomfort the way some kids sense rain. She leaned forward slightly and asked the girl her name. The response was quiet, almost uncertain, as if she hadn't said it out loud in a long time. Milo, always trying to fix things in small ways, slid his napkin across the table as though it were some sort of peace offering. The girl whispered an apology. She was sorry for being wet, sorry for taking up space, sorry for everything she didn't need to apologize for. Rowan watched her carefully. Her hands were trembling, her fingers ice cold when she reached for the napkin. She hadn't ordered anything, not even water, and the way she kept glancing at the window made Rowan uneasy, as if she was terrified someone might appear at any moment. He asked gently if she wanted something to eat, but she shook her head. "I'm just passing through," she murmured. The words felt rehearsed, like something she'd said too many times. A few moments later, she added, "I don't really have a place right now." Ella looked at her with a softness that only children can offer. Milo slid his hot chocolate toward her with a shy smile, like he understood she needed warmth more than he did. Ella scooted a little closer, not saying anything, but offering a presence that felt steady and kind. Mara glanced at them with a mixture of surprise and gratitude, as though she wasn't used to being looked at softly. It was in these tiny gestures, two kids making room for someone who had nowhere to go, that the emotional weight of the moment deepened. And as you listen, ask yourself, how do you feel knowing a child like her is out there navigating fear alone? What would you do if you were in Rowan's place, watching your children grow attached to someone who might be carrying more risk than truth? Rowan had just started to think she might finally be relaxing when the cafe manager walked over. His voice carried a nervous edge, the kind that makes a room feel suddenly smaller. He leaned slightly towards Rowan and asked, "Sir, is she with you? Someone's been looking for a girl fitting her description." The words landed like a cold shock. Mara's entire body stiffened before the sentence was even finished. Her shoulders rose, her fingers tightened around the napkin Milo had given her, and the color drained from her face. She didn't blink, she didn't breathe, she just froze, as though she expected the ground to disappear beneath her. Rowan felt the tension roll off her in waves before she whispered, barely audible, "Please, don't let them make me leave." It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud, it was a small plea from someone who had run out of places to run, and somehow that made it even harder to hear. The manager wasn't unkind, he just looked overwhelmed, unsure what to do with a situation he clearly didn't understand. Rowan sensed his discomfort, but he also sensed something deeper in Mara's eyes, raw fear, the kind that doesn't come from being lost, but from being found. He stepped forward before the manager could say anything else, calm, steady, protective. "She's fine," he said gently. "She's with me." The words surprised even him, but once they were spoken, he knew he meant them. The manager hesitated, then nodded, relieved to have an answer he didn't have to question. Rowan guided Mara back into her seat and told her she wasn't going anywhere she didn't want to go. She tried to protest when he ordered warm food for her, whispering that she didn't want to be a burden, but Rowan didn't let her sink into that kind of thinking. Not this time, not this child, not on his watch. Mara's eyes glistened as she watched him, as if she wasn't sure whether to trust the kindness or prepare for it to disappear. She kept glancing at the windows, at the door, her breath still uneven. Whoever she was looking for wasn't just searching, they were someone she desperately didn't want to find her. And that silence grew louder in the space between them. As you hear this, what do you think pushed her into that storm? What kind of situation makes a child more afraid of being found than alone? And who exactly was looking for her, and why didn't she want to be found? The storm outside had settled into a steady rhythm, but the tension inside the cafe thickened with every passing minute. Rowan was trying to keep the atmosphere calm for Mara's sake, encouraging her to take a sip of warm soup, helping her adjust the painful strap on her prosthetic without drawing attention. For a brief moment, her shoulders softened. She even managed a small breath that didn't shake. But the peace shattered the second she looked toward the window. A man stood outside, his clothes soaked but his posture unusually still, staring directly into the cafe as if searching for someone. In his hand was a jacket, small, child-sized, clutched in a way that didn't suggest care but possession. His expression was cold, unreadable, and his eyes scanned the room with a focus that made